Marketing and selling is essential in your online business. And when you have the right strategies and mindset, you not only can make a lot of money, but you can change a lot of lives. Welcome to the Online Marketing Podcast, where we help course creators, membership owners, and coaches market and sell their offers.
We're your hosts, Paul and Melissa Pruitt. Let's dive in and get started.
Welcome to our launch interview series, where Paul and I interview successful online entrepreneurs about their launches. In this interview, we speak to Ellen Johnson. Ellen Johnson started her journey with a brick-and-mortar business, which she closed and transitioned to a full online business. Now, when she transitioned, she had a very small list, but she really focused on creating relationships with the people on her list. And throughout time, she did different things, learned different things, and her launches improved. And now she has a very successful online business and continues to thrive in the online space. So let's go ahead and listen to Ellen as she shares her experiences with launching.
So Ellen, can you give us an idea of how you started? Everyone has a story, and so we definitely don't have to go back into the beginning of time, but how did you get started in this whole online business journey of yours?
It's an interesting question. So I had a brick and mortar retail store for 14 years, and my husband had a medical crisis in January of 2017. And that prompted me to do a lot of soul searching about, just exactly what the future was going to hold. And I decided after a lot of back and forth that it was time for me to close that door on the shop. So I did. Went ahead. Of course, he recovered and is doing great now. But at the time, I didn't know what was going to happen. And I thought, well, yeah, this is a good thing. So I decided that after he got better, so that was in January, the store closed in May, of course, because anytime you close down a physical business like that, it takes time to do all those things. And so I had my last day at the store I think it was May 27th, 2017. And after that, took a little bit of time to just kind of figure out, what was this going to look like? Because he was better at that point and I wasn't ready to retire. And I found Ryan Levesque's Ask Method course. And I don't remember what prompted me to sign up for that class. And all these years later, that's the one class that I credit with being the thing that helped set me up for success in the online space, because it helped me to identify who is my avatar and who or how can I best serve them. So yeah, I took that class and then had some ideas about what I wanted to do to create an online resource center for needle pointers. And so it all just kind of fell into place. So that may be a little bit more than everybody wanted to know, but hey, there you go.
No. Love it. And
it's interesting because you said 14 years of brick and mortar. Did that have to do with needlepoint at all?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
It actually was. It was a knitting and needlepoint store. So
yeah. So how did you feel internally? Because I know like a lot of us that like we have a job or a career or a business that's in the real world where it's tactical, like you're touching, you're feeling, you're meeting local clients and you're getting those relationships. And then suddenly, like, here's the entire world. Like, here's this online space. It's not like Joan and Bob that that are down the street that are going to come into your store every month. But it's like you're talking to complete strangers. How are you mentally during that point?
It was really kind of strange because I think I was at that place where I didn't know what I didn't know. And, and I wasn't afraid. I made the decision to pursue the needlepoint side of the business because, as I mentioned, it was a knitting and needlepoint store. And those are two very different forms of needlework. So I decided to go with the needlepoint side because I felt like that audience was less well served. So after I, had gone through this course and I still had my email list. So that, and I guess I should back up and say, I chose not to sell the business because I thought if I ever want to do anything with this in the future, I want to retain the rights to all of that. I wanted to keep my email list. I wanted to keep my name and all of those things. So I did have a very tiny little list of about 300 people that I sent an email out to when I first decided I'm going to be doing some teaching and I'm going to try and teach online. And so out of that about 300 people, there were I don't even remember, probably less than 200 who opted to stay on that email list. Mm-hmm. And I just started doing some social posts on Facebook, and I didn't even do Instagram at that point because I was, I'm 59 years old, and all this social media stuff, I'm a huge tech geek, but it was all new. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, all that to say, with the audience that I had, it was a little bit of a security blanket. I brought them with me, so it was like, I just kind of visualized, okay, I'm going to write this email to one of the people that was on my list that I already knew, even though we had new people joining the list all the time, because I would go in to different groups, different needlepoint groups on Facebook, and answer questions and help guide people the best way I knew how. I also started a blog and used that as another platform for me to be able to reach other people and draw them into our world. So yeah, it was kind of a gradual transition. So it wasn't just like one day I had all these people in my world and then the next day they were gone. So that was, like I said, a little bit of a security blanket.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. No, but I love that because you came back to the connection. And like you said, you talked to that, you could visualize that one person on your list and just really made sure that they felt seen, they felt heard, and helping them out. And I think that speaks tremendously because that's what this is really, it is all about, that communication. It's just a different format.
Yeah,
exactly. It's I think the thing that people tend to forget is that this is a human to human connection. Yeah, this is what's so important, is that there is an actual person on the other side of that email address, and they have a life, and they have hopes and dreams and fears at the same time. And so to just keep those things in mind as you're communicating with your audience is always what I circle back to. Sometimes, you can get distracted, but coming back full circle to that has always proven to be good for me. So
if we reround back to that moment where you closed the physical location, yep. You bought into an online course. If somebody else did a launch and you got into their launch, and you became a buyer of their program,
right?
And then on the other side of it, you're like, wow, maybe I can do the same thing and teach online. And so when you had those 200 people and you started doing the blog, the 200 people that remained on your list, you started doing the blog. Like, when was it that you actually did that first launch that you're like, you know what, I have this information, everything, I'm just going to take a risk and put myself out there the first time online?
Well, there's a really fun story that goes along with that. So I completed that course, actually even got the little certificate, I took the quiz at the end and passed with flying colors. And so that was a huge accomplishment for me. And I decided, okay, I have this idea. I'm going to put this idea out there. I also already had purchased a course called Product Launch Formula back in 2015. So I had gone through and I had applied some of those principles to my brick and mortar business. And I thought, okay, I know there's this guy named Jeff Walker who has this thing. I've done some of the lessons. Let's revisit that. And so essentially what I did was a seed launch. Mm-hmm. And so I sent out an email to the people on my list. And I said, I'm thinking about doing this resource center for needlepoint online. And it would be a place where you could come and learn about things that have to do with your needlepoint hobby. And if you're interested, then I'm going to be doing several little workshops that will give you a little bit of a taste of what it's going to be like. So you can sign up for those here. And basically what happened was I got a really good response. I also did some posts on social media and promoted it that way. And I want to say I may have boosted some posts, either that, or I may have had I don't remember if I had a very small Facebook ad budget. If I did, it was like $5 a day or something. It was really, really tiny budget. And so we filled up those workshops, and I said to myself, okay, if you get 30 people to sign up for this thing that you're offering, which essentially is a membership. It was a membership site. And if you get 30 people to sign up, then it's going to be a go, because I wanted to, create this platform, or this online learning space for people, particularly in mind with those people who did not live in a place where there was a local needlepoint store where they could go and take classes. So what ended up happening, we went through the whole process, and I ended up with 35 people.
Wow.
So it was like, okay, I guess that means I'm supposed to do this. So I went ahead, and that was in November. So that was around Thanksgiving that I did that. And then we actually launched the membership site in January of 2018. And it was very, very simple compared to what we have now. But yeah, that's how it all shook out. So
there's a lot of things that you said. So I just want to kind of just bullet point a few items. Like, number one, this is not like you're selling online things for like the last 20 years and like this is the next thing you're doing. So you really leaned in recent time. You had a brick and mortar and you transitioned, online. You didn't have a huge email list that had tens of thousands of people on it. Like you had a modest list of past clients that you started with, but then you didn't stop there. Going into like that initial launch that you did, you built your list going into that. Right. And also, like you reasonably amplified that message, like $5 a day. It's not like you had thousands and thousands of dollars in Facebook ads to get that out there. All this is very realistic for, I think, a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And then on top of all that, you reference, because we both understand, we all know what a seed launch is, but those that are watching or listening might not understand. And it's like you sold something that technically was an idea that didn't exist yet. Because we do see a lot of people that are like, oh, I'm going to try to build this thing, like this course or membership first. They're in analysis paralysis for like 6 months, a year, 2 years. Yeah. They never get around to launching anything. But in a way, it's kind of like proof of concept. Like you had 35 people that said yes. And it was like, okay, it's worth building, I guess, versus doing the opposite. And I just think that's amazing with all those elements. Because I think there's a lot of like limiting beliefs a lot of us have. We have to have a huge list. We have to have like this big background in this thing. We have to build the thing first. And like you basically destroyed all those things,
It went for it.
Yeah. Well, I didn't want to build something for two reasons before selling it. The first reason was, okay, so if I build this thing and then it flops, I've spent all that time and effort in doing this and it wasn't a success. And then the other was that really goes hand in hand with that is that this needs to be what my audience wants it to be. It doesn't need to be what I think it should be. I mean, yes, there can be elements of that built into it because as a professional needlepoint teacher and just a professional teacher, I mean, by education, that's my background is in education. So yeah, I knew that there were things that people needed to know that they may not be aware of that they needed to know. Mm-hmm. But in fact, it's really kind of funny. My course that I have sprung out of the membership because I realized or I noticed that there were a lot of people who just didn't have the fundamentals of needlepoint down, and they were wanting to do all these fancy projects using all these fancy stitches and fancy threads and make their projects look like needlepoint art when they didn't even have the fundamentals down. And so what I did in addition to that was there was a bonus that went along with that membership, and it was, join me for the membership and you get access to this course, The Fundamentals of Needlepoint, which is actually now called Needlepoint Made Easy. So what I did was that course didn't exist either, but it was one that was easy for me to teach because I've been teaching needlepoint for 14 plus years, in the store and beyond that, even longer. So all that to say, there were two products that didn't really exist, and so we just did those in real time. And that's what helped me to develop the course that I have today, because getting feedback from the people who were the initial participants in that course, there were things that they didn't know that I didn't think about. And so, it really served me well to keep that open-ended like that.
That's
So,
wonderful. That's wonderful. It really shows like you listen to your people, and then you evolved your products, you evolved the way you did things. From that first launch that you did, that you said was a little bit more simple, to nowadays, how have your launches evolved? How have things changed, and how have you grown?
yeah. So with the course, I still try to keep things relatively simple. I will confess. So in the beginning, I'm such a shiny object person, and there were so many different ways to go about launching a product. I mean, you can do an email launch, or an email campaign, and you can do a workshop, and you can do a challenge, and you can do, I mean, all kinds of things. And I've done them all. And the thing that I failed to do in the beginning was be consistent enough times to be able to measure what's actually working and what's not.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do now is we've pretty much got things down to rinse and repeat. And then we go in and try to fix those things that didn't necessarily work as well as we had hoped, so that we can then tweak and improve, and then just continue to make incremental improvements. But now I do workshops. For me and my audience, that tends to work the best. So I do a 1-hour workshop, and then invite people to either join me in the Needlepoint Made Easy course, or in the membership, the Stitchers Club membership. But the messaging has gotten much more precise and concise. So I know better who I'm talking to, and also trying to be super careful about keeping my eye on the target, as opposed to scattershot. We're going to try and reach everybody. Mm-hmm. Now, the audience that I have for my Needlepoint Made Easy course, there are actually 3 audiences that course will serve, but I still try to stay focused on the audience that is my membership audience, because that's our main product that we have. And so consequently, staying focused on the people who are going to hopefully eventually get to that program is so important to me. And the messaging is talking to those people, and they may be brand new to needlepoint, or they may be self-taught, or they may have done needlepoint a long time ago and things have changed. But the ultimate focus is, and you want to make needlepoint art. So we try to rein people in, or bring people in from sort of the outlying areas, but with the ultimate goal being to reach those people who want to create needlepoint art, and being able to articulate that in emails, and being okay with, I'm not for everybody. I know that my approach to teaching is not going to appeal to everybody. And there are plenty of people in the world who teach things a different way. Me being okay with that. And I'll admit, there are times that, it's like, oh man, what am I doing wrong? Why am I not reaching, more people? But then I have to stop and remind myself, I'm reaching the people that resonate with me. I'm not supposed to reach everybody. So, there's another teacher out there for somebody that doesn't jive with me and my messaging. So anyway, all that to say, really keeping a focus on who it is that I'm serving through any ads that we do, through any social media posts that we do, and through all of our emails that we send out, just being really, really clear on who that person is that we're trying to serve, and then being okay with it when we have people who opt to not join us.
Thank you for sharing that, because that's very much an abundance mentality. I think a lot of people that are new to business, they're naturally in scarcity, where they feel like there's only so many opportunities that exist. And if there are competitors, like the pie gets thinner slices. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think, and Melissa and I think we're not immune to that as well as we're not immune to, I think we're all, those of us that are further along, and we kind of bounce in and out of this, that we're recovering shiny object syndrome people as well. And we try to not relapse as much as possible.
Hard though, isn't it? It's so hard.
There's so much fun stuff there.
Now knowing that, because that's the wisdom I think that we all get, that's further along, and you having these iterations over the last several years, bouncing around, then finding the thing. Because at least when you did bounce a little bit, you did find the thing that gripped the workshops for you. Yeah. And then again, being consistent and, like you said, being focused, then you're able to see like, oh, how can I refine this and make it better and make it better? Now, if somebody wasn't at that stage though, and they were all the way at their beginning and they were about to launch for the first time, is there any advice or any input or wisdom that you might be able to give that person that's like in that beginning stage?
So keep it simple. That's so important because you can, at least I don't know, maybe I know I'm not a unicorn in this sense, but I have a real gift for overcomplicating things. And, I have to remember, keep it simple. And, also document everything that you do, write down the things that went well, write down the things that didn't go so well. And I would actually even go so far as to say, keep notes as you're actually going through the process, because what'll happen is you think, oh, I'll remember that, but then you never do. And then once you've done that, taken those notes at the end, go back and review those notes and then make a plan for how you can do it better the next time. What changes can you make? I mean, it's so important to, in my world, we call this a debrief. And you may call it the same thing in your business. But what we do is we go through and we look at each phase of the actual launch, and we see what went well and that we want to repeat, and then what didn't go so well. Why didn't it go well? What can we do to change it? And then to make those changes pretty quickly after you finish your launch, because if you want to make an offer to your audience on a regular basis, time slips up on you so fast, and you don't want to be at the last minute doing all these little things right before you're ready to go into an enrollment period for whatever program it is that you're trying to share with the world. So, try and constantly keep things up to date and make those improvements quickly. Don't put yourself behind the 8 ball at the last minute. And then also create systems and document that, this is something that we did very, very poorly. I shouldn't say we, that's like the royal we, because it was me. I did that very poorly, and my business grew relatively quickly. And so now we're having to go back and create those systems and processes in our Google Workspace so that when this happens, somebody can walk in and can say, okay, when a member decides that they don't want to continue their membership, what do we do? What are those steps that Ellen would go through and do in order to help a member cancel their membership? Or I don't know, what's the process that Ellen would do if somebody can't get into their member portal? So lots of things that needed to be documented so that I wasn't constantly being, pinged for, hey, what do we do now? We've got this situation that arose. And so, that was something that I really should have done a better job of in the beginning. And, lesson learned. So,
no, it's great. And having those debriefs and documentation is so important, because that's a gold mine of information there. That's how you're going to learn and improve. And that also is what helps with all those systems. I'm definitely into the systems, and we have areas in our business too, where we do really well. And there's always, we need some systems for that too. But talking about some of these experiences with documentation and your findings and your experience too. Do you have any top tips through learning through all those, those past launches for attracting clients? Like anything you want to share if you were talking to someone with attracting the ideal client into their world?
Yeah. So one of the things that I learned early on was you have to stay in touch with your audience. And that goes so far as to even saying, hey, I did this in some of the groups that I'm a member of that are niche specific. I said, hey, I'm thinking about creating XYZ, and I'm looking for 4 to 5 volunteers who might be willing to hop on a phone call with me, and to then do phone interviews with people to ask them questions and get their feedback. Give them an opportunity to talk, though, because, once you ask that question, like what is your biggest challenge when it comes to whatever, and then let them have the opportunity to talk, then you learn so much from what people will share with you. Not only do you find out what is keeping them up at night when it comes to whatever that particular topic is, but you also get the language that helps you in your advertising, in your social media, that you can use even in your email sequences that you send out when you're promoting a particular program. So, that just remember that there's somebody, again, on the other side of that email address, and that they do have, those hopes and dreams and fears. And your job is to serve them and help them to overcome the fears, to fulfill the dreams and the hopes. And just don't ever lose touch with who you serve, I think, is probably the best advice that I could give to anybody.
That's incredible, because I think we're in this day and age, we see numbers instead of human beings. Like we look at statistics and we see, oh, I have X amount of followers, I have X amount of likes, X amount of comments, X amount of, email subscribers. And we forget a lot of times, like, those numbers are not really numbers. They're individuals. And they receive everything as an individual as well. And I love that, again, circling back and just like, this is a human to human experience, and we forget about that. And by you creating those relationships, even at earlier stage with your market research of before you put something new in the market, that you're going to reach out and into those groups and that have your potential clients in them and be able to get on those calls, I think is so key. Because I think a lot of people just in a bubble, a lot of times they're just like, you know what, I'm just going to put this course or this membership together from their own perspective. And then I always say it's like trying to force feed, like it's going down the cereal aisle, but your cereal is broccoli, and it's like you're just trying to force it down the kid's throat. Like, take it, buy it. It's like, they're not going to do it.
Exactly.
Now you have that perspective and everything now, but if we were to go back to that 2017 moment that you were in, transitioning from real world to now, just with the knowledge and expertise and like the courses and the firsthand experience of different iterations that you've been through, would the Ellen today have advice for the 2017 Ellen?
Yeah, I definitely would. It would be, get out of your own way, because, that's something that I was guilty of in the beginning. We talked just earlier, just briefly about, that abundance mindset. I think mindset in general is just such a huge part of any kind of business. But with a business like this in the online space, it's so easy, especially if you work by yourself. It's so easy to get into your own head and think, who wants to hear from me? What makes me think that what I'm doing even matters? Why does anybody want to know about this? I think doing things to self-development, quite frankly, do things that will help you to become the best version of yourself, so that you can serve your audience better, and again, be confident in that you do have a message to share. Every single person is put on this planet, I believe, with a special set of gifts and talents and experiences. And you are the only person that can share whatever it is that you have to share in your way, because nobody else has had the same experiences that you've had. I could have the same exact training as another person, but that person hasn't lived my life. So, I think just remembering that I have a gift to give, and it's my responsibility actually to make sure that I do serve those people who connect with me, and serve them to the best of my ability and at the highest level that I possibly can. So, there's a person in the online space named Michael Hyatt, and I've followed Michael for years. And his wife actually has a quote that he shares often: when you lose your way, when you forget your why. And I think it's so important to remember why you're doing what you're doing, because that really is true. It's so easy to get off track and get in your own head and, just lose perspective when you don't remember every single day, I'm doing this because. So.
I love that.
The why is what's going to get you through those tough times. It's what's going to drive you to do those scary things. And I think that's just so important that you keep that. And I love that. I love that quote. That's really great.
Yeah.
And going back to those beginning times, when you first started, if you, back in that time, if you only starting over and only had $500 to market yourself, we would love to know how would you use that to market yourself? Because a lot of people, they're in that same position. They're just getting started. They have limited resources. What would you do in that scenario?
Well, I mentioned earlier that I had some Facebook ads that were like $5 a day. Mm-hmm. So what I would do now is I would, knowing what I know now that I didn't know then, I have a free resource that I share with my audience. And in exchange for them, they get that, and then they join our email list. They're always free to opt out at any time. So, the resource that I have is a guide, basically, that shares tips. It's applicable to people who are new to needlepoint, people who have been away from it for a while, and people who are self-taught. So it really is kind of geared towards that audience that best fits into that Needlepoint Made Easy program. And so what I would do is there are two things that you could do, or that I could have done. Continue to offer that freebie, and then invite people in and maybe run some Facebook ads to that resource with a low budget, or ideally come up with a resource, or even that same one. I'd probably want to improve the one that I have right now a little bit, or make it a little bit meatier, but then charge a nominal fee for that, $3, $5, $7 for it. Because I think that does a couple of things. One, it helps offset your ad costs. Mm-hmm. And so you can then, instead of just watching that $500 decrease, you're continuing to keep that engine going with the ads. Maybe boost some posts. That always worked pretty well for me. But, there's a lot of value in organic traffic, so don't discount the fact that you can get some really good traction if you offer helpful advice in communities that are pertinent to your niche. And a little bit of good advice can go a really long way. So, just remember that you're serving people instead of selling people. And I think that always is to your benefit.
I love both examples that you gave, because some people might not be prepared initially, but it would be maybe a stage 2 for them. But there are a lot of ways that people don't realize, like, you can build your email list and make money while you're building your email list. Mm-hmm. So when the ad that you're running is feeding back into the coffers, then you can perpetually forever. You can take that $500 and keep recycling it, mm-hmm. or you can make a profit on it as you're building an email list of buyers, which I think is incredible. And also, just not to forget, and I'm glad that you said that, because the moment a lot of times when we talk about money, it's like, oh, that's the only way you're going to be able to do this. Now, in the real world, if you go out and you serve people and you have conversations, grab tea or lunch with somebody, if you go to a networking event, or if you go into meetings and give value, you end up creating friendships for life. And it's like, and I think a lot of us forget about that. Online comes back to that human connection. And as you were saying, like, going into like Facebook groups or other communities that have individuals that are like-minded, that are already on that same journey, and showing up to give value, like, not there to take, but there to give, that people are just naturally going to be attracted to you, which I think is really awesome. And I think along the way, I think we could probably go full circles. Like, and I think you said a couple times earlier on, it's like, and not to forget those things, so even when you're further along, you shouldn't outgrow taking time to create those relationships,
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of people sometimes forget.
Yeah. So Ellen, before we wrap up, any last words of advice for anyone getting started in this online space, starting a launch? You've given so much information already, but just would love to hear any last words of wisdom that you could pass along.
Well, the one thing that I would encourage people to do is, you have one life, and you don't want to get to the end of that life and wonder, what if I had whatever? That's where I was, and I've always been one to Well, we'll at least try. The worst thing that can happen is it won't work, and you learn from that and you pick up and you move on and do the next thing. My business today looks nothing like it did in the very beginning. And so, and I'm sure in the next 3 to 5 years, it will look completely different than it does today. So keep an open mind and an open heart, and just try, because, there's no harm in trying, and there's nothing wrong with failing. You learn. In fact, I would say, I don't think there are failures. I think they're just learning experiences, and don't be afraid. Try not to be afraid. I know it's really, really hard, but try as best you can not to be afraid, and build up that courage and just put yourself out there. So
I love that. That is just really solid advice. And I know it's going to impact a lot of our listeners today for sure. I know people are going to listen more to what you have to say and follow and connect with you. So what's the best way that people could get in touch with you?
Well, of course, if you want to learn how to do needlepoint, serendipityneedleworks.com is my website. So we have lots and lots of really great articles on our blog. I also have some YouTube videos on our Needlepoint TV channel, and we're on social media as well. So I would love to teach some new people how to stitch and bring people into the needlepoint world. So there you go.
Love it. Love it. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much, Ellen. This has been really awesome. You have left so much information for people and so inspiring. And we just really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us.
Yeah, thanks.
Well,
again.
it has been my pleasure. And I appreciate the opportunity to, to hopefully inspire or help somebody who's just getting started. That's something that is just near and dear to my heart. I had mentors along the way, and I'm thinking back in terms of my retail store, and it just meant the world to me. And, if anything that I can share to help somebody else make their life a little bit easier is truly a joy. So
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
If you would like to work with us and our team to help you snap up more sales and incredible clients with a stellar marketing strategy that works, go to adaptivemembership.com and sign up for our wait list. We have a limited number of spots in our exclusive program to set you up for success and take action. We're waiting for you at adaptivemembership.com.